Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Command Your Brand podcast. I apologize for if you're watching the video version, it's the wrong banner is up currently because we're in the process of remocking the studio, and I've kind of been in a rush to make everything happen. And our next interviews are actually going to be done out of the studio we've just built, which is super, super exciting. But this is the podcast for visionaries, founders, and people doing really, really incredible things. And our guest today is Dr. Jason Dean. He's the founder of BraveTV, and he's going to talk about an interesting concept today, and it's the idea of your health, your freedom, and also your knowledge, and what those all have to do with each other. And he's going to actually tie this into money and your financial health as well, which is quite interesting, and how this ties back into liberty and the responsibility that you're taking for it. So this is a really, really interesting conversation. We went a lot longer in this episode than previous episodes, but I'm excited to share it with you. So let's get into this interview on the Command Your Brand podcast with Dr. Jason Dean. Hey, what is up, everybody? Jeremy here, and as always, I'm bringing you guys some incredible people that are doing really big things. Today is somebody that is a good friend of mine, and really somebody I like to call a real healthcare hero. That is my good friend, Dr. Jason Dean, and he is doing so many things in the world of making people actually healthier, but not just healthier, healthy in a way that they actually know how to take responsibility for their own health, which I think is a really big deal. And he's also helping to empower them so they understand financially where they can have more control in their life. Jason, thank you so much for hanging out with me today again, man.
Hey, it's always good to be with you, Jeremy. I appreciate you having me. And it's always awesome to be able to spread information out that helps people in their lives every day.
Absolutely. And we're recording this on the new Zoom, by the way, that tells you it's recording. Doesn't that feel like Skynet, man, when it's recording has started?
I love it.
So first, for people that haven't really heard about you, man, just give us a little bit about, your background and kind of, how you came into this world that is BraveTV. I know it was the Revolution Network, and you were kind of doing these nightly live streams when the world kind of changed, and I was waiting for them with bated breath. But tell us a little bit of your background and kind of what you're doing over there at BraveTV now.
Yeah, I'll give you a long time period or timeline into a brief summary. Is I actually wasn't involved with healthcare at all. I was in the medical matrix, let me call it that, because I talk a lot of matrix on my show on a daily basis. And I started off in the matrix, just like most everybody else, thinking medical is the right way to go. And then I got sick. I was in the sports world, actually, traveling around the country. So I'm no stranger to the entertainment world, the sports world, being on these podcasts, things like that. But I got unhealthy because I was starting to have heart attack symptoms. I mean, in my 20s,
gosh. And you were how old?
I was in my 20s, 25,
Wow.
26 years old. I was having heart attack symptoms. And I met my wife after going through the medical system, and they just wanted to push a bunch of drugs at me, a bunch of medications. And I almost took them, but I had met my wife right around the same time. They had put me on a couple psychiatric drugs, which luckily I took very small, brief part of time. And I will tell you, they are mind altering. They mess the body up, and I learned very quick, and I was able to get off of all that stuff.
Do you know? Today. So my dog just had a heartworm procedure.
Yeah.
And I told him twice that I don't want psych meds for my dog. They gave me psych meds for my dog. I'm like, well, hell no, I'm not taking that. They give these things out so easily, man.
Part of the matrix, man. It's literally part of the matrix. And we'll talk about the heartworm medicine. That's a whole other thing about today regarding that. But definitely, it's all part of the matrix. And so luckily, I was kind of saved by my wife from a healthcare standpoint. She's a practicing chiropractor. She also does clinical nutrition, which I also do now. So I was saved by her and a bunch of colleagues using nutrition, using chiropractic. I literally changed professions. So I left that whole sports entertainment industry, and I came over to healthcare. And so while I was in there, not only saving my own health and literally reversing, and I say that key, I was reversing my healthcare condition. I was going down a road of cardiovascular disease, heart attack, diabetes, potentially, and literally all gone because of what we do in my world now with my wife, our associates in our practice, and also what I do online. But going into that and really just gaining myself back. But while I was doing that, I also grew up. I don't want to say I was really poor to the fact that we didn't have any food,
Mhm.
But my mom worked hard. She was an addict, both drugs and alcohol.
I'm sorry to hear
And
that.
yeah, and she's sober now. She's doing great,
Oh,
but
cool.
she was on welfare twice. And
Wow.
so I remember back in the day, I mean, I have so many stories that kind of come together to build what is now Brave TV and my brand. But we were poor. I mean, we literally like were just getting by. She worked like 3 jobs. She was busting her butt while she also had this second life of addiction. And I remember being on welfare and food stamps. Like today, there's a debit card. Like you go and you scan it, and no one
Mhm.
really knows that you're like on a government assistance. Back in the day, it was like little paper coupons you tore out. And so
Yeah.
I remember feeling super ashamed, like embarrassed. I didn't want like friends to see me because I was in high school, but I had to go get groceries for my mom at the store. And so it's translated into this thing today where when everything went down last year, I'd been doing what was called Revolution Network for several years, where I was just trying to
Yeah.
get healthcare information out to people,
But
talking
you
to,
you hit like critical mass last year, though, man. Like
totally. Like I started off
celebrity.
just talking to people, and
Yeah.
then last year, I've been in the conspiracy world for a long period of time, and it's funny because
You'll
today,
like this, by the way. I listen to a podcast called the No Agenda Show, and
yeah,
he now calls it being a conspiracy therapist. So,
totally.
so if you hear conspiracies and you try to explain them, you're a therapist. That makes it okay.
I love it. And well, everything today. So I've been telling people, this is the crazy part.
Yeah.
So for anybody out there that sees this publicly,
Hmm.
I was that guy 10 plus years ago who was saying, wait a second, I'm looking at this healthcare industry, this matrix of healthcare. And let's not call it healthcare, honestly. It's the matrix of sick care, keep you drugged, keep you down, keep you suppressed. But then I
Hmm.
also see this thing of where kids are being drugged, like I was, and
Yep.
the school system is completely failing them. But then I
That's
also
how I
see
ended up in private school, man. Like
totally
they had a meeting with my parents, and the principal when I was in second grade because I was this like super smart kid, and they're like, all right, so Ritalin or he's got to go. My parents are like, well, we're broke, but he's going to private school, and we're gonna figure out how to do it. Like we're taking the kids that are able to do something, and we're kind of crushing them down to everybody else's level.
100%. And then add on to that, the money system, because I started actually doing this crazy thing. I started studying the United States Constitution because I
Mm.
grew up around people who were veterans. I grew up around my grandfather quite a bit, like American flag loving patriots. And so I started realizing what money was too, because I came from the debt, I came from the welfare, et cetera. And it really came to become what is now Brave TV today. And it blew up last year
Mm.
when we had the shutdown. And I saw it from a billion miles away. And I looked at my wife, who, even though I sound like the crazy person who everyone's listening to today, my wife has always accepted me for that crazy, like, he's talking conspiracies, but he actually makes sense. My wife agrees with everything I talk about. We all agree. But I looked at it and I go, all this stuff that I've been looking at for 10 years, from vaccines to medication to New World Order, government, it's like, this is going to happen. And then all of a sudden last year, boom, I watched it, and literally a show took off
Hmm.
because now we're July 2021. And I know it's a running joke, but every conspiracy theorist was right, and the
But
whole paradigm has shifted now. And so with Brave TV,
do
literally,
you follow Zuby at all?
I do.
So
Yes.
Zuby put up a post last week, and he goes like, so what are we gonna do now that all of our conspiracy theorist friends have ran into things that were actually conspiracies? Now they're true. Like, what are we gonna do?
Totally. And
But
like,
anyway,
so
you were saying Brave TV when I cut you off.
but no, you're right. And in the last year, I mean, I took people through, and it's really amazing. And I'm so thankful. I get viewer messages, and like last year, I was literally getting physical mail sent to me with gifts and things, and just letters for people who had never literally stepped upon any of what we're talking about now. They didn't know anything about it, and they're thanking us, thanking me, thanking
Hmm.
other channels for waking up, but also being the hope behind it all. And so
Yeah.
literally I went
Well,
from,
I think
okay,
there's kind of like a calming effect, right? For people that are
totally
like, I don't understand all this stuff. What's happening?
right. They're
Because like,
scared.
here's the thing, right? Even if we're 75% right, you at
Right.
least feel better to know something and feel like you have some sort of control over the situation.
100%. And so we took them from hope and like, hey, it's going to be okay, to now with Brave TV, it's more of, okay, how do we prepare ourselves financially correctly, whether it's gold, silver, cryptos, dollars, mining, stocks, whatever it is, to how do you get healthy? Because ultimately, no matter what happens in the next 6 months, a year plus,
Mhm.
If you are not physically healthy, if you're not taking care of your body, your mind, your spirit, you're going to have problems. And then we throw in a bunch of conspiracy stuff because it's fun. Because at the end of the day, I tell people, even if only 75, 80% of what I tell you is correct, and I'm not saying that I'm 100% correct, I just know the general direction that most things go. Even if we're giving you 75, 80+% accuracy, you knowing that is going to help you prepare for anything that comes. And so BraveTV has literally become that hope channel, but also an education channel. I want people equipped with knowledge so that they can prepare and create their own life.
So Brave, like what? Why Brave? Like you could have picked anything. Why that?
I actually sat down and thought about it. There was a bunch of different things I wanted to do. I wanted some liberty. I wanted libertas. I'm like, you know what? People aren't going to really understand that necessarily. I knew Glenn Beck had the Blaze TV, and I didn't want to do something super similar. But as I was like jumping through stuff, and Revolution Network was the original network, but it had to change. One, because I wanted people to be able to really connect with it, but also Revolution can also be negative. So I wanted to switch over, and I wanted to go into this new world where, okay, we're talking about what the problem is, but now we need to switch to building people up. And quite honestly, it gives people the opportunity to find themselves and find that bravery in themselves. And so ultimately, I mean,
I love that.
I work with lots of different groups out there. Like we have one in Florida called Florida Freedom Keepers, literally a bunch of moms getting together who literally have their careers or they're stay-at-home moms, but they had medical problems with their kids possibly. They're going to Tallahassee and other governments in other states to like literally go into government, meet with legislatures and say, hey, this is not right. This is what we really need to do. And so it was kind of my way of saying, okay, as Americans, we lost our country because we took our hands off the wheel. We actually have to get brave again, confront the situation, and start rebuilding ourselves with health, freedom, and knowledge.
Well, I think when your governor runs for president, I think his slogan is going to be "Make America Florida Again." That's kind of what I'm expecting, man.
I would agree.
So the thing I wanted to talk about, because you've kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier on, is this idea of the matrix, right?
Yeah.
And you know, there's a medical matrix, but there's a money matrix, right? So let's take a look at kind of deconstructing this idea first. And you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. I feel like the money matrix comes first, and that's where the medical matrix comes from. But let's kind of talk about that. Like what are we looking at, and what is, you know, the matrix you've been talking about?
Yeah, and it's funny because I first have to tell everybody I am not anti-medicine. I believe in emergency medicine, but I am pro healthcare. I am pro wellness care. I am pro taking care of your body, nutrition, chiropractic, take care of the person. I actually recall hearing this several times. We're back in ancient Chinese culture, Far East culture, where the doctors used to be, they only got paid if the person was doing good. Oof. So yeah, like that's a tough one, right? So we live in a world today. Hey, I'm not against money. Like I am a capitalist. I'm a free market guy. I love business. I don't like big corporations dominating the world, but I'm an entrepreneur. I have more than one business, right? Yeah. And so I look at it this way. I grew up with parents, especially a mom, because single mom at the time, where she was in the matrix from a drug alcohol standpoint, and she was working 3 jobs. And she was scared to death to go back to school because she was taught, or the matrix programmed her, that she wasn't smart enough. Right. And so I even went through that at one point. Like, I'm not smart enough to be a doctor yet. I became a physician. And so I realized very early on, but I remember literally taking those food stamps, coupons out at the grocery store. And I said to myself mentally, I need to become wealthy. I remember saying that at like, I don't know, 10, 12 years old. I need to become wealthy, not because of greed and money, because I want to make my own decisions in life. I don't want to be living off of fear and, oh my gosh, what's going to come next? This whole scarcity, starvation model. I actually truly believe that there's nothing scarce, you know, whether it's like, oh, we grew up with, you got to turn the lights off. We're wasting electricity. It's not free. Actually, if you heard of Nikola Tesla, electricity actually is free. Every once in a while, you hear somebody say, turn the water off. We're gonna run out of water. Oh, I live in Florida. It rains every other day, and I'll tell you what. Guess what?
It rains here all the time recently too. So I don't know, man. Like I feel like I live in Seattle all of a sudden.
Right. And so the matrix is telling everybody that you live in this finite planet, in this finite universe where we're going to run out of everything. And in reality, that's completely opposite of the truth. When you step out of the matrix, you realize that everyone can be abundantly wealthy. Now, not everyone's going to be, but you can be. Everyone can have abundant amounts of food. Everyone can have abundant amounts of time, energy, etc. And so I like to actually just help educate people through my channel, whether it's interviews with somebody or it's just me finding things that I'm studying and reading. I love studying and reading all the time, and just impart that knowledge. Knowledge is the way we move forward. Impart that knowledge on to people at home. I mean, I've had people literally who were with me a year over in the show, just listening, and it gave them the bravery to start their own business that they were thinking about doing, but they were scared to. When we have people making thousands of dollars a month on a business out of their home that they're making zero on last year. I mean, I had one woman who literally was able to pay her rent, save basically their house until her husband got his job back. And now she actually has a business that's creating more revenue sometimes than his job just because of watching the show and being part of it.
Well, see, you talk about knowledge, right? And I think when you look at knowledge, there's a lot of it out there, right? But to me, knowledge is only as valuable to me is as usable as it is, right? If it's more usable, to me, it's more valuable. So like, how do we determine, even where the right way and right places to get our information is? Because I think that's really important too.
Sure. And I believe health and wealth are the first before anything, but to get those, you have to have knowledge. There's literally no way around it. And it's interesting. People go, well, knowledge is power. It actually is not. Knowledge is power. The application of knowledge is what your power base is.
And that's why when we're hiring, I value aptitude, somebody's ability to use what they've learned. Like, that's vital.
100%. And that's really what it comes down to is educating. I tell people almost weekly on my show. And I jokingly tell parents, if you're watching, I need you to either do earmuffs. I'm not going to swear, so it's not kids earmuffs. Parents, I need you to put earmuffs on, because I'm going to tell your kids right now that school really is a scam in the matrix. And some people are going to hear me say that now, and they're going to be like, oh my God, what is this guy talking about? And I literally tell the parents and the kids, it doesn't mean you can't go to school. It just means it's part of the indoctrination matrix system. And let me tell you, I mean, just like you, Jeremy, I mean, we know each other, and we watch each other's podcasts. We watch the same podcasts of others. And the most successful people I know either have a very high degree, like physician, engineer, architect, whatever, lawyer, but most of them aren't even degree holders. They're entrepreneurs that went out on their own. They took the risk. A lot of them either got, community college degrees, or maybe they just got a small 4-year degree, or they just graduated high school. They got into sales. They got into marketing. They learned to provide value to people, and it actually made them wealthy. And so I tell kids and adults all the time, it doesn't mean you can't go to school. It means use your brain, use common sense, logic. Don't force anything. And especially, don't take on a $200,000 a year communication degree that's going to get you a $30,000 a year job, because guess what? The math doesn't add up. Become a salesman, become a marketer, learn how to provide value. And literally, this is what I teach in the show, because that equates to value in your life, which is money, which is monetary wealth. Surround yourself with intelligent people who are successful, and you will also be yourself.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting is I did an episode about this last week, because it was 4th of July, it was Independence Day. And I think people look at the idea of freedom. They're like, oh, I'm an American, I'm free. Well, not necessarily true. To me, real freedom, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but to me, real freedom comes from taking more responsibility, because the more you're dependent on someone else or something else, the more you become a slave to that thing. So it's kind of like what we've been talking about here. If you learn more about your health, you can become more free in your health. If you learn more about how to build a business, you can become more free in how you build a business. So when we look at that, what would you say are kind of your key tenets to how to be healthy, whether that's financially or whether that's physically?
Yeah. So it's actually interesting you say that, because people ask me all the time, like, Dr. Dean, how do you do the things you're doing every day? You're doing the show, you still practice, you see patients, you do, long distance things, you're constantly on the go. And I go, you know what? The more productive I stay, the better I do. I don't worry about what's going on in the world. I don't fear stuff. I don't like wonder what's happening. I just go. I do. And it's interesting because when I handle patients, some people, and this kind of goes to the answer to your question, people will start with me and they're struggling, like just healthcare wise, like they're struggling in their life. Their finances are out of order. They maybe have a job they don't like, or they don't have a job, or just struggling.
Sure.
And we work on okay, let's get the body doing better, because when the body does better, the mind will come behind it. Right. And I swear to you, it never fails. Within a couple months of them starting to like feel better, like they'll come to me, Dr. Dean, you'll be stunned. I'm like, well, it's hard to stun me, but what? I got a new position, or I got a new job. I'm making more than I had before, or I started this business, more money's coming in. I mean, people are doing things with their money now after working with me or listening to the show that they weren't able to before. And I just told them, focus on that physical health, right? Because trust me, no matter what happens, whether we go on to a booming economy with a great old president back in place, or we continue going where we're going, right? It doesn't matter whether you have to fight for your freedom one more time physically, or you can watch it be taken care of as everything goes on. Physically, you have to be healthy. There's no way around that. Because trust me, the number one cause of bankruptcy in the US today is not credit card bills. It's not like I didn't pay my, mortgage, whatever. It's bankruptcy through medical bills.
Yep.
People are physically.
My mom had a stroke back in 2012, right?
Yep.
The first medical bill that came in, $2.5 million. I'm like,
welcome to the medical matrix. Welcome to the medical matrix. Do you realize, let me share something with anybody that sees this. This is from a doctor. This is not a random person. When you have a medical bill, do you realize that they don't tell you this? You can go behind the scenes and you can ask them, hey, what is the cash price that I could take care of this bill? I've had people come to me that said they had anywhere from a $10,000 or $20,000 bill up to a couple $100,000 bill plus. They've been able to settle for just a couple $1,000s because guess what? The medical system never gets paid for their actual bill. And so they're actually willing to take cash.
Well, and that's why they bill so high. They bill so high because this is what they need to charge to get this.
But 2.5 million, let me tell you, over 95% of all disease in the world, especially in America, is lifestyle related disease, meaning you're eating too much sugar, you're eating too much junk food, you're not getting your body moving, you're not spiritually taking care of yourself, you're not going for a walk or a run or a bike ride or working out in the gym. Literally, America has sat down and become a couch potato. And that is the biggest reason why you're sick and have to spend $2.5-3 million for medical bills and go bankrupt, unfortunately.
So when talking about that, you're talking about taking too much sugar, doing these different things, like, what kind of basics do you tell people so that they can have that control? Because you're saying here, hey, it all starts with health, like to be able to, handle your wealth better, to be able to get a better job, like you have to take care of you. Yeah. So, what are those like kind of basic things that you see people doing, and what advice do you give them around that?
Yeah. So the first ones are really simple, of just getting moving and eating well. And when I say eating well, this isn't hard, right? So I am a very simple, go to your local grocery store, even if you have to go to like your local non-organic grocery store. Like obviously I prefer organic, but not organic's fine. Like just eat a good quality meat, eat some vegetables, put some good fat on it, like butter. That it's literally that simple, right? Like do some fasting, like in the morning, like, for example, I know like you and I, like we'll have some coffee, but I'm not going and gorging myself on a bunch of food.
Well, you got me drinking a lot less coffee. I had like an addiction problem. So yeah.
So did I. I talk about that in the show, but I'm
like mainlining coffee here. I'm like,
exactly. So eating less, but eating the right food. So that's a good way to start the food. And I slowly tell people, start yourself out at about 100 grams of carbs per day, and then bring yourself down over a month or two and get yourself comfortably under 50 grams of carbs per day. And yes, that means you got to calculate it. And then I don't tell anybody that they have to like run in and start working out in the gym and lifting weights and everything else. It's most of the time that actually is hard to confront for people because it's just too much. So I tell people, start with step one, like literally go outside, either by yourself or with a partner, spouse, whatever, and literally go for a walk in your neighborhood and look at nature. Like get yourself in present time. just by looking at the leaves, looking at the flowers, looking at life, your neighbors, etc. Right? Start there. Then maybe you can go for a little jog or a bike ride. Like work your way up to whatever you want to do. If you want to be in a gym, that's great. Work your way up. But start with those simple things like just some good meat, some good vegetables, good fats, along with just going for a walk, maybe a little jog. And I'm going to tell you, it sounds simple, but really fast that can grow to your ideal everyday workout and food. So it's not a big deal.
Are you one of these ones that says like don't eat red meat, don't eat it, like because and then I see other sides of the coin here where like I think I heard Jordan Peterson's daughter talking to somebody about like she's like, oh, I do a carnivore diet, I only eat meat, and it's like, how do you survive like that? So I guess like what are you looking at with like, you know, you mentioned 100 carbs a day and things like that, like ratios of things, like what are you looking and recommending to people?
So I actually personally go between carnivore and keto. And people are like, what? Like, so yeah, so carnivore totally is a legitimate thing. Not everyone's going to do it. If you're going to do carnivore, I really do recommend it's pretty much mostly organic pastured meats because of the hormones, antibiotics of conventional meats, things like that. But I will say that good fatty red meat, organic wise, is the most nutrient dense meat on the planet out there. And this is not me. I'm not arguing with the vegans and vegetarians. I'm going back to ancient old history that, hey, guess what? We used to eat meat and then fast. We used to eat meat fast. Like that's welcome to caveman, right? So I do agree with that. Now it is also, you're taking a lot of junk foods out of there when you go carnivore. Not everyone's going to do that, right? And yes, I am a red meat individual. I like fish. I'm not necessarily a big chicken person, but if you like chicken, do some fatty chicken here and there. And then down to keto. So keto is a legitimate good diet. I don't
because we're starving our bodies of fat a lot of times, and keto is actually giving us that.
Yeah, I don't like the word diet, honestly, but I know it's a used term today, so I use it as well. But I will tell you this for everybody out there listening: consuming good fats is the correct way to eat. Consuming sugars is not the way to eat. You've been brainwashed in the matrix that sugar is good for you and fat is bad for you. It's actually the opposite. Now, when I say fat, I don't mean canola oil and soy and all that. I'm not talking about that fat. I'm talking about good quality fats like butter, coconut oils, things like that. There's actually a study that was done back at Harvard University, and I believe CBS, Yahoo, all the major news networks out there actually covered this back in, I want to say the 80s, but I could be wrong. There was a study done that showed that sugar was bad for you and that good fats actually made your brain and cardiovascular system better. Those Harvard scientists were actually paid off by the sugar industry, something like $50,000 each at the time. They reversed
Donald Rumsfeld.
They reversed their findings, man. They reversed their findings, and they put out the journal article put out was that sugar was good for you and fat was bad for you. That was one of the beginnings of the destruction of the human frame, because you took good fats away and you put bad sugar in. It is making people sick.
Yeah.
That's simple.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard me coughing Donald Rumsfeld there with all his
the aspartame,
with his aspartame and his NutraSweet. So Jason, go ahead. You're going to say something about aspartame.
Aspartame was a chemical weapon found in Gulf War that Mr. Rumsfeld found out through his scientists that you could make a lot of money off, and it tasted sweet. His scientists told him, absolutely, we shouldn't be doing this. This is not for consumption. They overruled the scientists, and aspartame is on your store shelves today, and it's a neurological toxin.
What is it? What's the degree that your body actually converts it to formaldehyde?
Oh, yeah.
Is it like it's like 80 degrees or something like that,
It fully turns it into formaldehyde. Oh, 100%. It's
beautiful.
But
preserved from the inside out, man. Forever young.
It actually makes people eat more. So they give it to seniors because they want them well fed. But the problem is they're well fed with carbohydrates. It just makes more money.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they had in mind with the song "Forever Young," man. We're young from the inside out. So I saved kind of the best for last here. I want to see if you cringe when I read this. I was saving this for you on my phone.
Okay.
So I have a New York Times headline for you. Yeah. It says, today, flying the American flag from the back of a pickup truck or over a lawn is increasingly seen as a clue, albeit an imperfect one, to a perfect person's political affiliation in a deeply divided world. Why is it wrong to be patriotic is what I don't get here.
That's a great question. I mean, you're younger than me, but I grew up
not that much younger than you, man. I'm in my mid 30s.
You're not that much. You're not that much. We are kids at heart still. That's why we do this stuff too, right? This is fun. When did it become unpatriotic? This is part of the matrix. I mean, I grew up in a patriotic where I grew up. I told my wife the other day, I grew up where we left the front door open in the summer and it was just a screen door and no one worried about it. I left the house in the morning to go play. I sometimes came home in the afternoon for lunch, but then I was gone till the evening. It wasn't like the street light had to come on, but the whole point was we had a safe America. And literally, these I hate using the word elites, but the powers that be have literally stripped everything. And you know what? There's a great book that I've been reading called The Naked Communist. And the unfortunate part is I'm neither Republican nor Democrat. I'm just a free thinking individual. And I go back and I watch some of John Kennedy's debates with like Nixon. And they today say, well, if you're a Democrat, you're a Kennedy Democrat. Today's Democrats are not Kennedy Democrats. Today they're Marxist communists. Because if you read,
well, today's Democrats are Republican, or yesterday's Democrats are today's Republicans.
That is correct. So like, when you go listen to Kennedy again and Nixon again, I'm not saying either one were great or not great. The whole point is they talked about America being a great beacon of hope to the entire world. Today, we don't have either Republicans or Democrats. We have Marxist communists trying to take over the country. So they're trying to show these young children, indoctrinate them into that flag is hate. That flag is anything but hate. My wife is third generation Italian. Her grandfather came over to Ellis Island. Like we went through and found the records at Ellis Island, and that flag meant freedom. That flag meant you come over and make your ideal world for yourself, and you could do it in this nation. They're being taught that it's bad and it's hateful, and it's absolutely the opposite. That flag means that we come together as a diverse people. Dude, like this whole racist thing, this whole white supremacist thing, that is the biggest scam, like unfortunate joke they could ever push, because it is amazing how diverse and how much we as Americans actually love each other in all backgrounds. And this is one of the reasons the show is on. We can't allow this to continue on. My daughter's 7. She is being educated every day. It doesn't matter what color, creed, religion you are. You treat people with equality. You take care of them. You help them learn. They help you learn. You build people up, and we're going to make a real America. My daughter knows that flag and what it stands for, and she has one in her room. Like this is the America we have to teach again. Yeah.
Well, for people listening, Jason, if they've loved what you're talking about today, they've loved talking about health and wealth and how we can, really escape from the matrix and be brave. If they want to connect with you and learn more about what you're doing, where's the best place for our listeners to go?
Yeah, absolutely. So right now, it's actually I'm kind of doing this as fun. So I've been banned on Facebook. I've been banned on Twitter and YouTube and all those other ones because we're a little bit too much over target. You can actually go finddrdean.com. We did it as kind of a humorous like joke. Finddrdean.com, just kind of like where's Waldo, because you got to find out where I am. You can do that. You get on the newsletter. Once you get in there, you get the newsletter and you get all these good emails. We have our regular show 12 to 2. I'm on Twitch. I'm on Rumble now, live streaming. And so we go out to all channels. You can go to BraveTV.com, but it's actually, you get into that and we will teach you exactly what patriotism is. But you can also, more importantly, when you come to the show and when you watch and you be part of this group on Telegram as well, you become part of a tribe, and literally we're helping each other build each other up and make a great country again.
Very cool. Well, Dr. Jason Dean, Brave TV, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, man.
Thanks, Jeremy. I appreciate you having me on.